Good afternoon, and welcome to Hope Center on this Sunday, May 23rd, 2021. Our message is today out of Mark chapter 6, starting at verse 45 and going to verse 51. This is about seeing Jesus on the water. And in this particular situation, Jesus had instructed the disciples to cross the Sea of Galilee and that he would meet them. So in verse 25, and straightway he, that's Jesus, constrained his disciples to get into the ship and to go to the other side before unto Bethsaida, while he sent away the people. He administered to a lot of people there, thousands of people, and he wanted to send them away before he crossed with the disciples. But the disciples didn't need to wait. That was the job he planned to do. Verse 46, and when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. Jesus did a lot of praying. When he got up, before he went to bed, and this is after ministering, he went to pray. Verse 47, and when even, that's the evening, was come, the ship was in the midst of the sea, and he alone on the land. So we're seeing this is very explicit. The disciples were in the boat, and Jesus was on the land. And he, Jesus, saw them toiling and rowing, for the wind was contrary to them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he cometh unto them, walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them. So here they are, the disciples are in the ship, and they're trying to row to the other side. But the wind, they're rowing into the wind, and the wind, along with the currents, are pulling them away from the other shore, not towards the other shore. And Jesus is walking by them just like he's walking on solid land, and would have walked by them. Verse 49, but when they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed that it had been a spirit, and they cried out. They were scared. Why would they be scared? Even though it looked like Jesus. They'd be scared because this is something unknown. This is something they hadn't experienced before. And so people often get scared of a new experience they haven't experienced before. This is just being alive. Verse 50, for they all saw him and were troubled. And immediately he talked with them and saith unto them, be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. That's the thing Jesus always does with us, isn't it? The first thing he does, he tells us to be of good cheer and to not be afraid. Fear always works against us. Fear wants to push us to do something that we shouldn't do. And Jesus is always there to comfort us and to show us the way. Verse 51, and he, Jesus, went up into the ship, and the wind ceased, and they were sore amazed in themselves beyond measure, and wondered. Now, why this particular story? Because this is a capsule of what happens to us as believers. That is, the disciples all got into a ship to cross to the other side. And that's what we're doing all the time. We get up in the morning to go to work or to do something else. We are always planning to do this, that, and the other, and in the midst of those things, things happen. In this particular case, they're having trouble getting to the other side because the wind was against them. Now you think Jesus told them to go to the other side, it should go clearly. And that's not the case, as it is many times when Jesus tells us to do something. We have to work at it. It's not easy. It's a hard work. Even when he doesn't bid us to do it, often it's a hard work. Sometimes it's just tough to get up in the morning to get to work, or to apply yourself to do what you need to do. It's hard work, and you're pushing, and you're pushing, and you're pushing, and it just seems to not be getting anywhere. Now, it's just like the disciples in the boat. They were trying, and they didn't seem to be getting anywhere. And then here Jesus turns up. They look, and they see Jesus, and it scares them. You know what? That is exactly how Jesus works. In the midst of our trials, in the midst of our difficulties, while they're trying to row in this particular case, Jesus shows up. And he always wants to show up in our difficulties, in our problems, to strengthen us and to give us direction, how to get to where we need to go. And here he was walking as if he was on solid ground on the very waves that they couldn't get past. So they find it scary. They see him and it's like, well, they've never seen him walking on the water before. Scares the daylights out of them. He says, peace, be still. Peace, be still. He's always speaking peace to our hearts. That's the nature of Jesus, to speak peace to us. So he's walking, and he would have walked by them, but he saw they were scared, and they called to him, so he went into the boat. And as soon as he got in the boat, the wind stopped. Amazing. And you know, that's how Jesus works. As soon as he gets into our situation. In this case, it was a boat, but our situation can be anything. We can be at home, we can be in a car, it doesn't matter where we are. We call on him, and we see him. And he doesn't quite seem familiar in this situation, because it's a different situation. We have a problem. And Jesus says, peace be still to us, and he gets into our situation, and all of a sudden what was opposing us, what our problem was, disappears. It just disappears because Jesus came and he applied himself to that situation, and it's gone. Yes, God does allow difficult things to come into our lives. Some people think they're Christians, so they shouldn't have any problems at all. Not so. Our faith grows in adversity. You don't find oaks growing in greenhouses. It has to be out there where they experience drought, where they experience sun, where they experience drought, or where they experience sometimes getting drowning by flooding. Doesn't matter. They have to be out there in the elements to experience what they do to grow strong. And we're the same way. We grow strong by going through difficulties. If you've ever encountered rich people that haven't gone through difficulties, they're shallow. They have no character because they haven't had anything to form their nature of who they really are. So yes, God does allow difficult things into our lives to build our character, to build our faith in him. Now the enemy works in us through those difficulties, and he wants us to say, forget God, we don't need him. We don't need this trouble. And God's working to say, no, you need me, and this can bring you closer to me, and we can have better victories in the future. And so they're always opposed to one another. But in the case of real Christians, Jesus always prevails. Because he's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. That's why we serve him. That's why we love him. He died on the cross for my sins before I knew him, before I even wanted to know him. He died on the cross. He knew my sins before I existed. And he died for them. Paid the price for my sins on the cross. Your sins, my sins, everybody's sins. So that we can spend eternity with him. Doesn't mean that we all do, because we don't all accept him. But he's there for everybody to accept, and so that we can all spend eternity with Jesus Christ. And that is my message for today.